it's really just soaked up that butter that kind of oozed out. It's not getting much action going on in there. I am going to try the cold oven method with this. I have my foil ready. I will be putting the foil on like I normally do. Welcome back to my kitchen. Thank you so much for joining me today, friends. I am making small batch cinnamon rolls because things just tend to linger in my kitchen for way too long, and I think that a small batch will work better. I used to make this all the time as a large batch, and it makes a lot. So I am going to figure out what I'm doing. In my measuring cup, I have 1/3 cup of warm milk with it's about 2 teaspoons of butter. It should be about 1/2 cup of liquid plus a little, you know. I'm not too concerned about how exact it is because I can just always add a tiny bit more flour just to soak it up. So I'm going to put in a scant teaspoon of yeast, sprinkle that on top. I'm going to give that a minute to proof just because my yeast has been sitting in the fridge for a while and I'm not exactly sure if it's still active. Give that a quick stir, let that proof a little bit. Meantime, I'm going to get this back in the fridge. So I was doom scrolling on the internet the other day and I saw a recipe for small batch cinnamon rolls. It called for about 1 cup of flour, and I'm like, you know what, I could totally just take my recipe and divide it down until I've got about 1 cup of flour. So that's what I am doing. My recipe, it generally calls for 3 1/4 cups of flour, so it does make a lot of cinnamon rolls. But I reduced it by 1/3 to get to the 1 cup of flour. So let's see, and it might take slightly more than that. Now the reason why I decided to not follow the other recipe was because it called for an egg yolk. What am I going to do with an egg white? I kind of really don't like recipes that call for only part of an egg because I don't always have a good use for the other part of an egg. So I just modified my recipe. My recipe normally calls for a little bit of water. I didn't put the water in because I am just going to put the whole egg in. Oh, I cracked my egg, by the way. So I'm just going to put my whole egg in and do that. So I currently have 1 cup of flour in here. I may need a bit more because, like I said, my recipe calls for 1 cup and 1/4, 3 cups and 1/4. I need just about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Get that out of the way. I do need a little bit of sugar. So this is an enriched dough. It's got like a little bit of everything with the sugar, the milk, and the butter. So I need 2 teaspoons of sugar. Just double check that there. 1, 2. Get that gone. I will have the recipe linked below, so either check the pinned comment or check the show notes. I will put down the recipe for the full recipe, and then I will just, I'll probably just have a note at the bottom saying how much of everything I put in for a 3rd recipe, if you just want to do a small batch. Okay, so, not getting much action going on in there. Maybe I should have put my sugar in here, but it should activate even without sugar. Okay, well, I am going to give it a few more minutes and then I will come back to this. If I need to pull out some yeast from my freezer, I will. I probably should just figure out how to do this as sourdough, but not everyone in my family likes the taste of the sourdough, so yeah, we'll figure this out. I do have yeast. While I am waiting for my yeast to proof, I am going to get some sourdough in the oven. Now, under normal circumstances, this is just a normal sourdough recipe. I did forget to put the sugar in, by the way. We'll see how that goes. But it's a normal recipe. I did try to do the poke test, and for some strange reason, it just blew up a big bubble there, so I had to pop that bubble. But I think I am domed enough that I am ready to go in the oven. My oven is not on. So normally I have the oven light comes on. It's not on. I am going to try the cold oven method with this. I have my foil ready. I will be putting the foil on like I normally do. I will cover this up. I will put it in the oven, and then I will turn the oven on to, I think I've been cooking this at 425 covered. So I'm going to put it on at 425 covered, and then in about the last 5 minutes or so of baking, I'm going to take the cover off and then just give it a little bit of a chance to brown. So we will see how that goes. It's supposed to give good oven spring, so I wanted to give it a try because, you know, I gotta wait for the oven to heat up, and then I gotta put it in, and then I'm standing in here waiting, and yeah, I might as well just, I wanted to give it a try and see how it does. So I will let you know what I thought of this technique. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next step. I did end up having to put in a little bit of yeast from my freezer stash. It is starting to activate. It's just, I think it's just slow. It's been in the freezer for a while. So I am going to get my egg in. I did wash this egg earlier. That's actually how it got cracked. So there we go. And I left my chicken bucket somewhere. That's just lovely. I'm going to give that a quick little whisk to break it up. That should literally be it. It really just doesn't call for very much. So away we go. Get all that goodness out. Okay, so let's see where we are at flour-wise. I think that will definitely need more flour. This might actually work better with a 1/4 cup of milk instead of the 1/3 cup of milk, just to account for the extra liquid from the egg white. A few extra cinnamon rolls won't hurt. Okay, so that was not quite a 1/2 cup. That might have been slightly too much. I don't know, maybe not. Okay. Yeah, it was not enough. Huh, interesting. Okay, another 2 tablespoons. Just going to play this by ear. I really would like to make a small batch, because I don't know if I will be able to eat any, just because we found some salad greens on sale. So I always jump at a sale. And so we got the salad greens, but they were due to expire really soon, so I've been enjoying salads, which is really nice. I really need to get some Aerogardens going again with salad greens, but the problem is that the space I need to start salad greens is the same space I need to start my seeds for my summer garden. So unfortunately right now, summer garden is taking priority. Which I will hopefully be able to get that going soon. Okay, get a little dough scraper. Let's get some of this off. Don't soak these. It gets rid of the, it weakens the glue. So that is why my thing broke apart the other, well, I don't remember when it was a while ago. I shoved it back in there and it seems to be staying for now, but definitely don't put those in the dishwasher and don't soak them. Okay, I got dough everywhere, oh my goodness. This is a lot stickier than usual, so I definitely will need to work in a little more flour. Goodness gracious, that is just sticky. Okay, let me get some more flour before my hands get too gummed up. Should be a soft dough, but not super sticky, which this one is still really sticky. Yeah, that is coming together. It is definitely feeling a lot less sticky. I'm going to try to get the last little bits out. Okay. So my bowl will need a little bit of oil, and I will need to do a little bit more kneading on this just to make sure it comes together nice and smoothly. My goodness, I don't think I have ever had this much trouble with a dough before. Every time I think it comes together, it just devolves into a soggy, wet mass again. I think it needs a little bit more kneading because of all those little bits I had to get off my hands and the counter. I don't know if it's worth getting any more of this in, but I hate to waste dough. Okay, I think I am super close. Okay, so it should be a little tacky, but not super, I mean, it was super sticky earlier. So I think I need to give it a little bit more flour and then call it good. Hopefully that wasn't too much. That has come together. I'm going to get a little oil in the bowl, and it just needs to sit and rise until doubled. Should take about an hour to 2 hours, depending on how warm or cool your kitchen is. Since I have my oven going right now, I'm hoping it will be closer to an hour because, you know, the oven's warm. Okay, probably a little bit more oil than I needed. I like to roll it around, coat all the sides and the bottom. I'm going to get that covered, and I'm going to put it on the stove so it can just warm up and rise. This just came out of the oven. I'm actually going to brush the top with a little bit of butter just to soften it up a little. Normally I wrap it, but I feel like, I don't know, the wrapping seems like it's causing the air bubbles that I get that causes the crust to separate. So I thought this time I would try something a little different. I do feel like I didn't get quite as much oven spring as I normally do. I don't know if you can see that. So it's not quite as tall as it normally is. So we'll see. I might just stick with the preheat the oven method, but if you have a Dutch oven or something that can't be heated with nothing in it, this would be a great method to use. But, you know, I'm just using a loaf pan, so it kind of doesn't really matter. It's just going to save a little bit of time because you don't have to wait for it to preheat, then put your bread in. It does take slightly longer. I think I did 45 minutes at the beginning with the foil on, and then another 10 minutes at the end at the slightly lower temperature with the foil off. So it probably in the end took about the same amount of time if I had stood there waiting for the oven to preheat and then watched the bread bake. But it is totally another option if you wanted to, you know, do it in a Dutch oven that can't be preheated empty. So take that information as you will. The cinnamon rolls, the dough is starting to look like it is getting close. I have 4 tablespoons of butter here, which I actually think is a little bit more than I need, but a little extra butter doesn't hurt. I don't normally mix my sugar, butter, and cinnamon together just because I've never done it that way. I've only learned about that sort of more recently, and I haven't made cinnamon rolls sort of since that fact. But since I need to actually make brown sugar and I don't feel like trying to make it by hand because that's a big pain in the butt, I am just going to mix it all together. That way I can mix in the appropriate amount of molasses to make my brown sugar, and it all should hopefully be hunky-dory. So I'm going to get in, I believe it was half a cup of brown sugar. So that's that. It does call for, I don't know why it says half a cup plus 1 tablespoon. I'm going to ignore the 1 tablespoon. I do have a little extra butter in here though, and that is because I normally put a little extra butter in the bottom of the pan. I figure some of it's just going to leak out. We will just deal with that. And then I need 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. You obviously can put in anything else to your heart's content if you want some other spices in there. Or if you don't think 2 teaspoons is enough, go ahead and add more. Then I will probably try to put in about a teaspoon of, probably slightly more. That's not quite a teaspoon. I'll go just a smidgy bit more. There we go. Okay, so probably about a teaspoon of molasses to half a cup of sugar will hopefully get me the color I am looking for. It's going to be hard to tell what color it is because it's going to have this cinnamon. It's going to make everything dark. Okay, so that was probably a little bit too much butter. It will leak out. Kind of makes the bottom all caramelly and crystallized a little. Might add in just a smidgy bit more, just to see if I can tighten that up a little bit. So maybe 2 tablespoons. Don't think I'm going to need more molasses. I think I'll be okay with the amount of molasses I have. Okay, that's holding together a little bit better. So, okay. I will be back as soon as the rolls are finished rising. I think they are very close. Alright, here we go. I think we are pretty much doubled in size. That kind of went a little bit faster than I thought. It took about 45 minutes instead of an hour. So either my fridge yeast was okay and I added a bunch of freezer yeast, or the warm oven did the trick. This is really warm. Okay, so what I would like to do is I want to restrict the height. I don't want to go too high this way, but I want to go out as far as it will go out. So I will probably get a little bit more going in this direction, but I think I want to mostly go out. And I also want to make sure I don't get it too thin in spots. Be afraid to just sort of pull it where you need it. Try to get rid of some of those thin spots. Yeah, this is looking a lot better than when I normally do it. It used to just make so much. It wasn't even funny. Okay, so I think I'm at a 1/4 inch thickness. So that's probably a decent thickness there. I got a little bit of cinnamon or something on the spoon that didn't get mixed in. So let's get that off and mixed in properly. Now obviously if you have brown sugar and you just want to do the, drizzle the butter on and then sprinkle the sugar and then cover it and cinnamon, go ahead. You don't have to do it this way. It's just another method of doing things, and I don't have brown sugar, so this is just what I am going to have to do. I think this is going to be my pinching edge, so I want to make sure I don't put too much right up against that edge. And just for the record, this is the full recipe for the cinnamon and butter. I always had to make more to do, get good coverage. So this just goes to show that either I was rolling it out too thin, or they don't want you to have as much flavor on. It was a recipe I actually got from our local newspaper. It's a really good recipe. It's just, it made a lot. Okay, so I think this will be much more reasonable. I'm going to go get the extra ingredient. I can get all that sugar. There we go. And that is mini chocolate chips. So my kids requested that I keep some plain just in case, so I'm only going to put it on about half of them. But I generally just sprinkle a uniform layer of these little chocolate chips, and it gives a nice little chocolatey bonus to the cinnamon roll. I don't know if you've ever had like the Cinnabon Cinnarolls, or there was a place, I can't remember where it was, that made like the big gooey cinnamon rolls. They had like chocolate chips in it. Oh, it was so good. Okay, so I think that is pretty uniformly spread. So at this point it's just traditional cinnamon roll. You want to start it small, tight, and then just keep it going. Yeah, it got a little thin there. I can see the filling through, but okay. I would suggest rolling a little bit further away from the edge, because this is a little awkward to move. Let me just do a quick reset. Okay, well this is the pan I am hoping I can get everything to fit in. And then, I have heard a serrated knife goes a long way. I'm just going to do about, I don't know, that's probably about 2 inches. Okay, well it looks like I got about 8. Now the ones on the end, I always put them end side down, then they don't look quite so bad. So, I don't know how I'm going to fit 8 in here. Okay, end side down. There you go. Okay, so we're going to, I probably could have cut those a little bit smaller, but I'm just going to go with, I'm rolling with it. So 8 works out perfectly. So this just needs to rise again and puff up. Hopefully it'll fill up the pan, but I don't want to overproof it either. So I will show you, I'll show you where I end up with. And I think these 4 don't have chocolate and these 4 do. I'll have to remember that too. So this is about the level of puffiness I am going for. I don't want it to be too puffy. It will rise a bit in the oven, but this is what I'm aiming for. This is, it's been about half an hour, so 350 for half an hour in the oven, and I will have some nice warm cinnamon buns. So I didn't get very much crust separation. I am hoping that by not wrapping the bread, that solves the problem. So I think that might have been the problem, but I'm not 100% sure. Either I was overproofing, underproofing, or it was the wrapping. But the bread looks beautiful. I mean, I would certainly do the cold oven technique again. I would certainly also not wrap the bread, just to avoid getting air bubbles. Tastes wonderful. I had to hold back on just sitting here and eating the whole loaf. The cinnamon rolls turned out so good. I should make these more often. They are just so good. So there is a little bit of crunch to the top and the edges, but the bottom here, I don't know if you can see it, It's really just soaked up that butter that kind of oozed out. It's rich with the cinnamon, and the chocolate is just a nice little sweet burst of chocolate flavor to it. These are really good cinnamon rolls. It made a small batch. It made 8 rolls. You could make the rolls a little bit, like not roll the dough out quite as wide as I did, and probably get 4 or 5 out of it and probably fit it in an 8x8 if you wanted something smaller but bigger. You know, think Cinnabon or those IKEA cinnamon rolls that are just massive. These ones are smaller, it's a more reasonable size. This is what I was going for, and I feel like I got it. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope you give this recipe a try. Let me know if you do give this recipe a try. Curious to see what you think of it. I will have some links up at the end that you might also enjoy, and thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.